Hey, help support the show by joining the Patreon or becoming a YouTube member. Also hit that like button to subscribe if you want more Cavs-focused content. All right, so we've had a lot of time. I did like a 2.5 hour conversation that I spread out over this last week with Tony Pesta about what went down with the Cavs in the playoffs. And we've been able to kind of separate ourselves with it, but most importantly, see how the Pacers look versus somebody else. And I think there's one thing that we just have to admit to ourselves about what happened in the second round. And this is not an excuse. It's not just me saying hands up, we don't need to fix anything, right? This is the case. But it is a truth about this situation that I don't think enough people who want to be critical of the Cleveland Cavaliers have, quite frankly, acknowledged enough. The Pacers are playing better than anyone thought. And the Pacers are playing since June 1st. I think there's somebody who keeps commenting this, and shout out to that person. But like since June 1st or something like that, the Pacers have had like an insane record. They've been playing in, not June, January. I'm tripping. It was in January. Basically, since the last month of the regular season is this guy's point. The Pacers have been playing the best basketball in the NBA. And yeah, that's true. And you're watching them right now. And that team is playing the best basketball in the NBA. They're probably going to beat the Knicks in a 5 to 6 game series. That's what it looks like right now. They're probably going to win the NBA Finals if they continue to play like this. Like, look at their postseason splits. They are playing the best. I think a lot of us are fixated on the fact that the Pacers were a 50-win team in the regular season. I've been fixated on that, or how the Pacers look like at the beginning of the regular season or at the middle of the regular season. But the truth is that this is one of those years where a team got white hot at the right time, and the Pacers are playing better basketball than anybody is willing to admit right now, right? And that played a tremendous role in the Cavs losing to the Pacers. And we have to consider, I know we got to put our ego down as Cavs fans and consider that maybe what happened in the second round had less to do about the Cavs and more to do about the Pacers. I know a lot of us pay lip service to giving the Pacers credit. Right? Oh, you got to give them credit. But let me act like if we had two things go right, we would have beat the Pacers in 5 games. Like, the truth is that even if the Cavs were healthy, if the Pacers were playing like this, they would have been a very difficult team to eliminate. Could the Cavs have done it? Possible. Definitely possible. But they would have been as difficult of a team to get past as any team the Cavs would have played. It would have been as difficult to get rid of the Pacers as it would have been the Boston Celtics, as it would have been probably more so than the New York Knicks, and probably like similarly to what it would have been like to get past OKC, right? That's the level of basketball the Indiana Pacers have been playing. They've been playing like the best team, if not the second best team in the NBA for quite a while, right? Let's look at some of their postseason splits just so I can make this point even wholer, right? Because if we look at postseason splits for them, the Pacers are scoring 119 points a game. They have a tremendous defensive rating, and they're shooting, 40% from three? Let me look at this and make sure. Yeah, these are their postseason splits. They're shooting 40% from three and 50% from the field and 80% from free throw. So they're almost like, if they shot better from the free throw line, if they were better free throw shooters, they would be 50, 40, 90. Like, that is the level that they're playing with as a team. And that's just stretched out throughout the whole postseason. They've been incredible, right? Tyrese Halliburton's averaging 18 and 9. Pascal's averaging 18 and 6. Miles is giving them 16. They're getting double figures from like 6 different guys. They've been playing some of the best basketball in the NBA. And if the Pacers beat you, You now have to just acknowledge, and look, this is tough because I thought the Cavs would just run through the Pacers. I'm gonna be real with you. I didn't think we were gonna get challenged by them. I was tremendously wrong about this Pacers team, but we do have to acknowledge whenever we're reacting to this series that it's quite possible that this is less about us and more about the Pacers. And that's a hard pill to swallow. That's a hard pill to swallow. But that's the pill that you have to accept in this situation. Look at what they're doing in New York. Like, look what they did to New York in game one. They had this like 12-point comeback in the end of the fourth quarter. And I'm not even surprised because I saw them do similar stuff to the Cavs, like 3 different points in the last series. This is the type of season they're having, right? Sometimes you call this a team of destiny type run, but they are incredibly hot. They're playing their best basketball. And not only are they playing their best basketball in situations where they need it, they are getting the ball to bounce the right way, right? Tyrese Halliburton shoots a ball off the rim and it just bounces into the net to send them to overtime. And that's just the kind of year they're having. Like, if you lose to the Pacers, it might be less about you than you think this year, right? I get it. They're the Pacers, but they're not like limping through and playing bad basketball and beating you. They're playing some of the most incredible basketball this core has ever played, if not the most incredible basketball this core has ever. Like, you're getting the best out of Tyrese. You're getting the best out of Pascal, out of Miles Turner, out of Nesmith, Nembhard, Mathurin. Like, you're getting the best out of like 8 dudes on that roster all at the same time. It's magical what is going on with them. Not to say that they have not earned it, but obviously they've earned it. Just they are having things line up in a way that does not usually happen in the NBA. And I think that's obvious, right? And that's resulting in a run that seems incredible because the odds of all of this stuff lining up are incredible. That's what the Pacers have done. We have not paid enough respect. We've paid some lip service, but we've not paid enough true respect to just how good the Pacers have been and how much of a role that played in the Cavs losing. Also, on the flip side, if the Pacers are having a generational run because like they're having 8 guys be hot at the same time, the Cavs had the opposite going on where they had 8 guys hit cold streaks all at the same time. It's incredible how cold the Cleveland Cavaliers were during that series, right? Like, again, if Darius comes back and Darius doesn't get injured, maybe you have a chance, but you're still not shooting above 40% from 3, right? And that might ultimately have done you in versus the Pacers, right? Because that was, I think, the heart of a lot of the problems the Cavs were having, on top of, I think, some legitimate structural issues that the Pacers were able to successfully exploit from you. If you're able to absorb the loss of Garland better, I do think you have a chance to win the series. And because I do think you might win game 1. I think you definitely win game 2 with Garland. You go up 2-0, right? And then if you win game 3, that might break the Pacers and change the series entirely because the Cavs did win game 3 by a significant margin, right? So that could have made things shake out differently. And if I'm the Cavs and I'm thinking to myself, okay, what really killed this season was our inability to hold up without Darius Garland. Now, why couldn't you hold up with Darius Garland? Because the Pacers pressed you full court when Darius was not on the court or when you did not have Darius. And what that meant was that it really exposed the lack of handle on this Cavs basketball team. Without Darius Garland and, to a point, Evan Mobley, and Evan's handle is strong, but it's a lot better than like a lot of the other handles they have. But Evan being your second best handle is not necessarily a good thing. But without Darius and Evan, those are your 2 best facilitators. And I would argue, as far as getting the ball up court, your 2 best handles, pound for pound at least. And without those 2 on the court, a lot of your playmaking suffered. The ball stopped moving. And part of the ball stopping moving was nobody was making shots and everybody was scared to death to take the shot, right? But the ball stopped moving. Plays stopped being made. The offense stopped being run. And I think what that exposes is that the Cavs need to get a legitimate backup point guard. We can talk till we're blue in the face about if Darius Garland were healthy, the series would have been different. But here's the truth. I love Darius Garland. I am a Darius Garland defender for the most part. But Darius Garland, the way he plays basketball, he's going to get hurt. You cannot avoid it. He's going to be injured. You're going to miss Darius Garland for games in the playoffs. You can no longer build your roster and anticipate that Darius is not going to get hurt. You're setting yourself up for failure, right? That is the same way the Houston Rockets set themselves up for failure, just assuming Chris Paul was never going to get hurt when Chris Paul always gets hurt. Darius is going to get hurt. Hopefully not significantly hurt, right? Like he's not going to miss seasons. That's never really been the case with him in his NBA career. But he's going to miss time. And you have to be able to withstand not having Darius for a couple of games in the playoffs. And this roster was not able to withstand that. I would argue that if Evan went out for a couple of games, they would have been fine. If Donovan went out for a couple of games, they would have been fine because they have enough to replace those roles on the team that they can get away with that, right? They could not get away with Darius being hurt, not because Darius is better than Evan Mobley or better than Donovan Mitchell, but because the role Darius plays, there's nobody sufficient on the roster right now that can take over those responsibilities if Darius is not there. There's no other point guard on this team. Ty Jerome's not a real point guard. Donovan Mitchell's not a real point guard. Even Evan Mobley's not a real point guard, right? He's the best you got, but he's not a real point guard. And then what we talking about bringing in Craig Porter Jr., who's more of a scorer than a facilitator. Was Sam Merrill going to facilitate the ball? Like, who got a handle? Who has the second best handle on the Cavs? It's a horrific conversation to have. That became a real problem. So, one, I think the Cavs need to address stuff. I don't think the answer is trading Darius Garland because you already don't have enough point guards. If you trade Darius, then you have no point guards, and you're just exasperating the problem and making it worse because you don't need more scoring. Right, the Cavs can score at a high level when they're shooting relatively normal from three. I expect them to eventually shoot normal from three in the playoffs. That part, the scoring element of it, I don't think we need more scoring or just need to trade Darius to get bigger because I don't think size killed you in this series. I think you rebounded well with the Pacers. I believe you out-rebounded the Pacers for most this series. And the couple of times where it cost you, where you didn't get a rebound, it wasn't because your bigs didn't rebound. It was because your guards didn't box out or weren't paying attention and got caught off guard, or straight up there was a lane violation that did not get called, right? Which was what happened on that Tyrese Halliburton play in game 2. The NBA refs have admitted so. So I don't think size killed you in this series. And if you look at the East, I don't think size is going to kill you in the East anytime soon. Giannis might be getting shipped to the West, and that's the only true big in the East you have to worry about unless Joel Embiid goes to a better team. I don't think size is the big thing, right? I know everybody loves the default when the Cavs disappoint. It's about size or toughness, but I think those are just talking points at this point. I don't think that's really the issue. I think the issue with the Cavs, they need a backup point guard. They need somebody who can facilitate and handle the basketball in order to maximize this roster. And they only have one guy who can do that. They need two. That guy doesn't have to be a scorer. That guy doesn't have to get you 20 points a game. I'm not asking for another all-star behind Darius Garland. But what I am asking for is a legitimate backup point guard. Now, my dream here is Lonzo Ball. Right? If I could get anybody for who I think is going to be affordable, like, because obviously there would be other point guards you would go for in the dream scenario. But if I'm looking at the most realistic, most affordable options, Lonzo Ball is the one I'm like, hey, if we get Lonzo Ball, I feel a lot better. Great defender, long player, so it gives you some size. He can shoot the 3 spot up, and he's a great facilitator, good handle. So if Rick Carlisle's trying to press you, Darius Garland is hurt, you can easily start Lonzo Ball, and your offense can go as normal. Donovan can carry the scoring load. Evan can carry the scoring load. And then Lonzo can do what Max Strus does, right? Shoot threes. Or what everybody else other than the designated scorers on this team does. So I think Lonzo Ball is a tremendous fit. add some defensive size there, right? So if Darius is getting bullied, the team just keeps switching on him, you can bring in Lonzo, still have a facilitator so your bigs can continue to be useful, especially Jared Allen. I think Lonzo would be the best guy possible to bring in. Obviously, there are massive injury concerns with Lonzo Ball, and you don't want a situation where we're like, damn, Lonzo and Darius got hurt. But if we're just looking as a basketball fit, I do think Lonzo makes a ton of sense here. There's a crazy one that I'm going to suggest next because it's going to be super cheap and it does make a ton of sense. But when I say this name, you're going to have a bad reaction. And so prepare yourself because you're not going to love the name I say here, but hear me out, right? This is the ultimate hear me out moment. Remember when they were trying to bring Ben Simmons onto the team? Part of me thinks, hey, man, Ben Simmons could have made a difference in this series. Again, it's not good that you're at that point, that you're like, Ben Simmons could have made a difference. But I legitimately do think Ben Simmons would have made a difference. Because let's not think about how Ben Simmons is a disappointment compared to his draft type, because that's not the player you will be signing up for if you bring in Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons will be a very cheap contract you can bring in. So your expectations for him are low, but that's fine because the pay for him would be low. Ben Simmons can defend still. He's still 7 foot tall, and he still is able to use that size effectively. He rebounds. Yeah, Ben Simmons rebounds, and he assists at a high rate still. 5 assists, 5 rebounds this year in the supporting role with the Clippers, and he barely played with the Nets for whatever reason, right? He's 6'10", he's 240 pounds. He gives you size. He gives you somebody with a handle that can come off the bench and facilitate the offense. I think there's something to that. Right? Like, I think he can be helpful to you. And if the Cavs want to go out and get him in free agency, which he will be a free agent and likely a minimum free agent, I think it'll be a good move. I think that's the move you need to make. I know there are concerns about does Ben Simmons care, all that stuff, but you should trust your leadership in the locker room to be able to withstand that, right? It can't be so fragile that if you have one guy in here who might not be fully on board with the program, it crashes the whole thing. And I understand the ideal of bringing in Ben Simmons to a team that seems to be prone to playoff collapses as a fix to those playoff collapses is not going to sell well to most people. I am not unaware of the optics of bringing in Ben Simmons. But if you're just looking at what Ben Simmons can do as a basketball player for the price that he's going to be had for, which is pretty cheap, and you're looking at what the Cavs' holes are on the roster, Ben Simmons makes a ton of sense. You can bring in Ben, and you don't have to lose anybody, right? If you go after Lonzo, you're probably going to have to lose Ty Jerome. Like, is that a fair enough trade-off? I know opinions are low on Ty, but Ty was a big part to getting the Cavs where they got to this year. So I can see a world where Ben makes a ton of sense. Right? He's an emergency big. He's your backup point guard. That fulfills 2 issues that the Cavs have, right? The Cavs need more rebounding. They need more big bodies on the team. They need more length on defense so they can be better at point of attack and on ball. Lonzo solves that. Ben Simmons solves that. Obviously, Lonzo's the better point guard of the two, and a better scorer of the two. But, Ben Simmons is not that much of a step down. It's just he's Ben Simmons. And nobody's going to take you serious with Ben Simmons playing a role on your team, which, hey, look, that's fine. Nobody's going to take the Cavs serious anyway next year. So if we fix the holes on our roster and that ultimately ends up putting the Cavs in position to win a championship, who cares if people thought we were serious before we did it? Nobody thought the Pacers were serious before they made this run, right? But now people think the Pacers are serious. You don't just get gifted being taken serious. You earn it. Yeah, I think Ben Simmons makes sense, right? I know a lot of people bring up getting Draymond Green. I just don't know about that one. Like, I feel like Draymond's still expensive. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong there, but I think he's expensive. He'd be expensive to trade for. And it don't solve your problems. Like, yeah, Draymond could bring the ball up and he could facilitate a little bit. But he's going to clog up a lot of what you do defensively because he wants to play the same role Evan Mobley plays. Like, Evan Mobley and him are too similar defensively, I think, to be compatible. And also, Evan's already undersized as far as weight goes at the center position. Bringing in a undersized power forward to support him has kind of been part of the problem with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. And I don't think it's going to be a solution for the Cavs, right? Like if you bring in another undersized an undersized big to play next to him. I think if you have somebody play next to Evan Mobley or play with Evan Mobley, Evan either has to beat a 5 with a pretty physically imposing power forward, or he has to beat a 4 with a true center, like a Steven Adams or something like that, right? Like, I don't think the solution is let's bring in another hybrid. I don't know if that works out for you, right? And I know Draymond's truly a center and he's done it for a while, but yeah, if you're gonna go after size and toughness, right? If that's gonna be your focus, then I get Draymond brings toughness or at least a bit of an attitude to a team, but I don't think he really fixes your size issues there. But speaking of Evan Mobley, I think another thing that needs to happen next for the Cavs is Evan has to be involved in the fourth quarter from this point on. Evan kind of was treated himself like a advanced role player this year in the playoffs, and I did not love that, right? Like when Evan got the 15 shots, he stopped shooting. Evan's a superstar. Evan's an all-NBA player. You can't stop because you got 15 shots. You got to shoot the ball as much as the team needs you to shoot the ball. And I know some people are going to bring it up on Kenny Atkinson or say that the guards need to get Evan the ball or need to make it a point of emphasis. Evan needs to make Evan getting the ball a point of emphasis for Evan, because that's what's best for this team. Evan shot 60% from the floor, was 70% in true shooting. He also was 40% from 3. He was the only player that was playing well for the Cleveland Cavaliers offensively this entire series, who had mismatches that worked for him. He needed to be more aggressive and take over this series. If the Cavs would have had any chance to win, they needed Darius to play better. I mean, not just to play better, be healthy. But they also needed Evan to demand the ball in the fourth quarter. Too many times I watch Evan have 20 points, 30 points in the first 3 quarters, 2 shots in the fourth quarter. Evan, it's no longer an option for him not to be involved in the fourth quarter. And at this point, I'm going to blame Evan more than I'm going to blame the coach or the guards, because Evan has to make this a point of emphasis for himself. He has to get in those huddles and say, hey, how about I get the basketball? How about I try to score, right? And sometimes you just got to take that ball and score that shit. Like, that's what Julius Randle was doing for the Timberwolves to get them to the conference finals. That's what you need more out of Evan. You need Evan to realize, hey, you're in the big 3 of this team. You're one of the main scorers. You don't got to wait your turn. Your turn can be whenever you want your turn to be, and you need to demand it. So I need Evan Mobley to take the leap, not as a scorer. I think he's taking the leap as a scorer, but as somebody who knows he can score. The mentality leap, right? He has to have that dog in him, right? And that dog in him means you want the ball in the fourth quarter. And are not okay with not having an impact on the fourth quarter. Say what you want about Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell will miss 12 shots in the fourth quarter before he doesn't have an impact. The same thing is true with Darius Garland. Evan needs to be somebody who, no matter what, win or loss, Evan has an impact in that fourth quarter. And that has not happened enough. It seems like Evan is not demanding it happen enough as well. The Cavs need to make some adjustments, right? I don't think they need to trade big pieces to this team. I think the one movable piece is Jared Allen, but they aren't that far off. We're talking about them having a legitimate shot to win the NBA Finals if they're able to withstand a 2-game stretch where Darius Garland didn't play. That's truly what we're talking about, right? That's how far we're talking about. 2 games where Darius Garland didn't play, and maybe some fourth quarters where Evan Mobley could have stood to ask for the ball more. That's how far off the Cavs are. They're not that far off. I know it feels like they're worlds off because of the level of disappointment that you're feeling, but a lot of that is wrapped up in thinking that the Pacers were a much worse team than they actually were coming into that series. Like, that's really where that goes in. That's why I posted the other day, I just don't feel bad about losing that series anymore. It's not like I'm not upset. It's not like I'm not wanting the Cavs to make some adjustments, but I'm not going to treat the Pacers like, they were some scrub team that got by us. The Pacers are playing the best basketball in the NBA right now, and they were playing the best basketball in the NBA when you played them. So, I treat that like you lost to Boston or you lost to Oklahoma City or something like that, the way we were looking at them at the beginning of the playoffs, because
Obviously I wouldn't want to go out in 5 like against those teams. I would want to go out in 6 and 7, but I'm not going to blow the whole team up because we had that kind of a series versus that kind of a team. That's just where I feel. If you disagree, that's fine. I'm not saying my opinion's absolute. Just giving you how I feel about it. But if we really think about what got exposed in the Cavs playoff run, it wasn't toughness. I know a lot of people default to toughness. It wasn't toughness. The Cavs were plenty tough in their series. I think the issue was that what got exposed is that we're not as deep as we thought we were as far as the basketball team goes, and that depth was not constructed properly, right? Maybe if Donovan Mitchell goes out, we feel like we're deep because this team was constructed to withstand a lot of Donovan Mitchell absences, but we were not constructed to withstand any absence from Darius Garland, which ended up being a catastrophic flaw for this basketball team. Also, the Pacers were on a generational run, and the Cavs were on a generational slump, right? The perfect storm brewed for Indiana to whip our ass in this series, right? Like if you say something like, oh yeah, 9 times out of 10, the Pacers don't beat the Cavs in the 7-game series. Well, this is everything that needed to happen for that one time that happened. Not saying that's the case. Obviously, the Pacers were playing at such a high rate that it was 50-50 who comes out this series, whether we realize that coming into it or not. But understand that, you partly lost the series because the perfect storm brewed for the Pacers, right? It had less to do about you than it did about the Pacers just playing incredible basketball. And if you look at the NBA landscape, the truth is there are no more dominant teams in the NBA. There are no more dynasties in the league, right? Boston is not going to be a dynasty. Jason Tatum injury on top of the second Abrams going to eliminate that. We are in the era of ultra parity, which means anybody can win it. Any kind of team that's structured untraditionally can win an NBA Finals. Any kind of team with some kind of flaw can win the NBA Finals. Are the Cavs a perfect team? Are they built perfectly? Do they have flaws? Obviously, yes. But that same thing is true of every team that's left in the playoffs, has massive flaws right now. The team that will win the NBA championship will have a massive flaw, right? Either it be Oklahoma City, who doesn't have a primary scorer out of Shea, which is usually a death sentence for a playoff team, or the Minnesota Timberwolves, whose best player is very inconsistent, which is usually a death sentence for a team in the playoffs, but not this year and not in this era. Whether it be the Pacers, whose best player is not really considered one of the best 15 guys in the league, or at least 10 guys in the league, right? 10 guys in the league. And Tyrese Halliburton, right? They have a lot of guys who people kind of tag as high-level role players on that roster. They can win it all this year. Or the New York Knicks, who we spent all season talking about all the problems that team has structurally, right? Those are the 4 teams that can win a championship this year. All 4 of those teams have massive flaws where you can point at and say no team wins a championship like this, right? That's not the era we're in. There's no Michael Jordan. There's no Kobe. There's no LeBron James. There's no Steph Curry in his prime. There's no KD Warriors. This is not that kind of league anymore, right? Where we lived in an era that was just abundant with some of the best players of all time. Like, think about how many guys on the NBA 75 list still play. Like, the best 75 players in the NBA, how many of those guys are at the end of their career right now? That's the era that we're used to, and why we have these rules about what a championship team has to look like. That is simply not the case anymore. This is more like baseball, where any year, any kind of team can win the World Series in baseball, right? This is what the NBA is. So if you don't think the Cavs can win a championship because they got 2 small guards, or because you don't think their bigs are heavy enough, that does not matter as much anymore, because there's not Shaq that you have to get through. There's not LeBron that you have to get through. There's not Michael Jordan that you have to get through. That's why those rules exist, because those players were the kind of players you had to get through to win a championship. Now there's nobody you have to get through, quote unquote, to get to a championship. You just got to be able to overcome whatever obstacles come your way. And those obstacles can vary depending on what teams you play and how those teams look when you play them. This is a different era of NBA basketball in a different landscape. And the positive part about that is that anybody can win it any year. So if you're the Cavs, it would be foolish to throw this core away that proved that they can get the 1 seed in this era just because they had a disappointing playoff run this season. And, before Kenny Atkinson, they had a couple of disappointing runs as well. I think it would be foolish for the Cavs to let go of all of that. Tweak what's there around the edges. Make yourself Darius Garland injury-proof. Maybe get another big. Maybe get a big and a point guard all in one with Ben Simmons or Lonzo Ball, right? Somebody who could rebound from the point guard position to kind of step into the rotation. I think that would be very helpful for this team. But if you make those small adjustments, I think it can have big benefits because who knows what the obstacles are going to be next year. This year, you were cold from 3 and you ran into the Pacers who were playing incredible basketball. Next year, your obstacle might look different, but any team can win the championship, and it's no further exemplified in this era than what's happening right now. Look at the Final Four in the NBA. All 4 of those teams, if I bring you all the way back to the regular season, y'all would have told me you can't win a championship being built like the Thunder are. Y'all would have told me you can't win a championship being built like the Minnesota Timberwolves are. Y'all would have told me you can't win a championship playing how the Knicks play. You can't win a championship playing how the Indiana Pacers play, right? Pace team, fast break team. That team doesn't normally go far in the playoffs. You can't win a championship like that. You can't win 7-game series like that. The fact is what we know about the playoffs and what we know about winning 7-game series all hinges on the existence of there being the big boss man, right, in the playoffs. The Shaquille O'Neal, the Kobe Bryant, the LeBron James, the Steph Curry, Kevin Durant. That's not there anymore. Those guys are at the end of their run. And they haven't been in their primes in a couple of years. That's not the world we live in. So all these rules that we have about how you can build a team to win a championship, throw that shit out. It's different. And that's what should get you hope for next year, is that as much as it's disappointing that the Cavs had what happened to them happen, the Cavs are more than capable of doing what Indiana did to them to somebody else next year. You just got to keep it together and keep the faith there, right? Indiana, they could have blown up, traded, and decided they don't want to get Pascal Siakam, decided they're going to trade Miles Turner. They could have did all that shit. Earlier in the season, they decided to keep the core. It's paying off for them. Let the same thing happen to you, right? And this is a tough situation, but we just got to get out of this mindset that we're living in the same NBA that we grew up in. It's just a different league now, and that means different things are possible for a team like the Cavaliers. So that's my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.